This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm here with Stephen Campbell from Lifford Agencies. How are you today, Steve?
I'm great, Jamie, and I'm glad you're here because I promised you that I'd tell you some tales and tell you some true lies about things like how I got in the wine business and how to succeed in the wine business and 10 easy steps and all that kind of stuff. But I'm sorry, I forgot my notes today, so I'm going to have to make it up as we go along. The wine business. Why wine? Why am I here? How do we do things? Wine for me is one of those things that is so, first of all, closely related to food for me. I grew up on a farm in northern Ontario, and we didn't have much wine, but we certainly loved to cook, and I learned to cook at a very young age, and that led me to a very wise decision when I was 25 years old that I should open a restaurant. I had never worked in a restaurant, I had never cooked in a restaurant, I had never waited on anybody. But I decided to open a restaurant, and being young and not knowing any better, I did. And I worked young in St. Clair at a little restaurant called La Maison for 7 years, and during that time I started to meet people and talk more about wine, and I started to realize that there was something to this wine thing. It wasn't just another beverage. It wasn't like Coca-Cola that was the same with everything else. And I started taking some wine courses and meeting some wine people, and believe me, in the early 80s in Toronto, there wasn't much of a wine culture. We didn't have to look very far and look around very much, because there really wasn't very many people who were interested in wine.
Where were the kind of wine establishments at that point, or the places that really had any kind of forward-thinking wine program?
There was, in the time, in the 80s, there was, one place, two places that were calling themselves wine bars. And I ended up buying one of them in 1985. I bought a place called Valois. And I immediately changed the name to Delisle, and I was at Delisle for 10 years, and that's when I really started to get interested in wine. And
it was during that time you sat your sommelier diploma, was it not?
Yeah, I did. I was the part of the first sommelier course, I believe, in Canada. It was at George Brown, and it was a great group of people. There was 25 of us in the first class, and people like Charles Baker was in the class, and Paolo Polini from Mistura were in the class, and it was a bunch of wine cooks, and a lot of them still in the business today. And that was, I think, the only sommelier class in Canada, but there were 25 graduates. If you think of today, the sommelier courses across Ontario and how many graduates are happening every year, there's an incredible difference in the in people in interest in wine. I can tell you a little bit, and this will give you an example of how low the level of wine appreciation was in Canada, never mind Ontario. In 1988, I entered into the Award of Excellence program at the Wine Spectator, and that year I won my first Wine Spectator Award of Excellence for having an outstanding wine list. Now, today, if you look around Canada, there's many of those restaurants that have those awards, but in 1988 there was only 4 of us in Canada.
In the whole of Canada?
In the whole of Canada, there was 4 of us. So we really were. I was really at the bleeding edge of the wine business, and it was, and that was really instrumental in me becoming a wine agent, because when that happened, and I was at Delisle until 1995, I had 7 years of every wine agent, every winery person coming through the city, coming to see me. And I just met the world of wine. I met everybody in the wine business coming to Canada. And that was just an incredible time for me to make friends all over the world, and make connections, and those later on turned out to be really, really worthwhile.
At which point did you decide to make the shift from hospitality into the world of wine, the wine business?
Well, it just, it's one of those things. I've been the kind of guy who likes to jump into things, and I heard that Lifford was for sale one morning, and about 2 hours later I called Hunter Thompson and said, "Hunter, I'd love to buy Lifford," and quite fortunately he he said yes, and we started off. It was pretty funny because there were just the two of us working at Lifford at the beginning. We had no business and had a great portfolio of wines, and had to figure out how to make it work. And I'm very fortunate to this day that Karen Doyle, who's my left and right hand, is still with me.
Yes.
And we're really big into grand titles here. So my title is the Grand Fromage, and her title is the Petit Fromage, and together we keep things cheesy. And it's been quite a run. It's been fantastic. I've been 17 years now in the wine business, and from the beginning, what I knew about restaurants, because I'd spent 17 years in the restaurant business, now I'm 50-50 in food and wine. I knew that restaurant owners were looking for a great selection of wine for their establishments. And in great wine, there's so much great wine in the world. So how do I define great wine? Well, great wine for me is not just a wine that gets some score from some critic at some point in time. Great wine to me has to be at a great price. You have to be able to over-deliver in your wine program in a restaurant, so you can differentiate yourself from the other restaurants. I mean, you've got to make a restaurant today who's ignoring their wine list and not searching for the absolute highest quality at the best price. They're failing their customers.
I couldn't agree more.
And you've got a situation where the restaurant industry is plagued with people failing. And one of the reasons that people fail is they don't take every aspect of their business. They don't consider every single aspect. And when I go and look today at new restaurants, and I look at their menus, and I look at their wine list, I can pretty much tell you within 10 minutes of visiting them what their chance of success is, because people fail at the very, very beginning to put together food and wine programs that meet the needs of their customers. They're thinking about themselves and not thinking about the customers. And
Yes.
it's always, you have to put yourself in the customer's mind first. And I see that as a problem in our hospitality industry and our wine industry every day.
What is exciting you in the world of wine at the present moment in time?
Well, Jamie, you know me, and if it's got Pinot on the label, I'm liable to be kind of interested in it. I must admit, I do have a few other passions, but Pinot happens to be one of them. And I've been fortunate enough to, work with some of the greatest Pinot Noir producers in the world in Lifford, and that's something that's going to continue. But I'm interested in a number of different things, because my brain's always going 50 miles an hour at least. I think that, as you know, I'm a big fan of New Zealand wine. I'm a big fan of regional Australian wine, and I'm really happy to see Australia coming to grips with the fact that they're just not selling Yellowtail anymore, and they've got to sell regional wines with, again, that quality in the bottle and a story behind them, coming from a family, coming from an individual region, and you can taste the difference between Barossa and Coonawarra and Market River. Big fan of Tuscan wines. Big fan of Barolo. Am I getting gone too far? I don't know.
No.
Lots of different things get me excited.
What can you see on the horizon with regards to where the wine world is going? What will the next Malbec be, for example?
Well, that's a really difficult question. I mean, we need to ask Robert Parker, because you do know that Robert Parker started the Malbec revolution. It was about 4 or 5 years ago in the spring edition of Wine Spirit magazine, and he was the one that said that Argentina was the next big property.
Right.
We need to ask our gurus out there. But for me, I think what we're seeing here, and I've seen it across Canada, is that American wines have come back very strongly, and they've had a very difficult market in their home community, and that's where 70% of the wine consumed in America is American wine, and so it's been hyper competitive. So what we're seeing out of California now is the development of secondary and tertiary lines that used to be sold under the Grand Mark name, now are being sold off as second wines, and I think we're going to see more of that kind of thing, and American wines are increasing in increasing in sales across Canada right now.
Now, when you say American, are you touching upon Washington and Oregon?
Well, we love at Lifford to take on difficult fitting tasks, and one of the tasks we took on years ago was to introduce, super premium New Zealand wines, and it took us a while for people to appreciate that. We were very fortunate to now work with a number of phenomenal wineries from Oregon, and they've been sort of neglected in this market for a while. Because of the fact that our Canadian dollar was so low and the American dollar was so high, Oregon wines had gone out of favor in this market. When in the past, number one market for Oregon wine outside of Oregon used to be Ontario. But then the dollar tanked. When you can sell wines from someone like Mark Lossick and others from the Adelsheim family from Oregon, Amity, there's just some great wines coming out of there. And then there's Washington, where we have Charles Smith, and he's the the wild man of Washington, and we're just having amazing success with Boom Boom Syrah and Eve Chardonnay. But we did get a little trouble though with the LCBO and with the labeling, because on the label of Eve Chardonnay there's an apple, and they said, well, what's an apple doing? Is this apple juice or is this grape juice? And the Boom Boom Syrah, now the Boom Boom Syrah's got a bomb on the label. What's this bomb doing on the label? It could explode in someone's car or their home. You can't have that. But fortunately we've been able to persevere, and the wines are still being sold. But, sometimes labeling issues can be fun. I've had the situation where we had a beautiful wine, beautiful bottle, and it was lacking the word wine. So we had to pick a sticker that said wine on it and put it on every bottle for people to know. So it's it's a little fun when you have labeling issues.
Well, Steve, thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today.
Well, Jamie, I would like to say one thing, and I'd like to say both to you and Malcolm, thank you for Good Food Revolution. It's something, again, I think that we need publications like Good Food Revolution to help us lead us to the next generation of excellence in food service and hospitality in Ontario and in Canada. So thank you.